Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
Ever since you injured yourself, they just lost a little bit of its luster. The hello. That's okay. We're going to talk about a this time. We're going to talk about this very cult movie that a lot of people hadn't seen, and this is actually one of my favorite episodes to do because I saw this movie. This movie was a staple in the 80s for me on cable, and Lewis had never seen it. So it's always interesting to me to find, me seeing this in my teens versus Lewis seeing it, in his 50s, um, and getting his perspective on this. So the movie we're going to talk about this time is the 1985. I can't even call it really a hit. Just One of the Guys, with a cast of Joyce Hyser, Clayton Rohner, William Zabka, who we all know from The Karate Kid, Sherilyn Fenn in one of her very early roles, and yeah, I like I said, I can't really even say it was a hit. It made about $11.5 million when it was released, but it's kind of become a cult classic in a lot of ways. And so, first off, Lou, what'd you think?
It was a little campy. Definitely oozed 80s, right? It had 80s written all over it, with the scenery and the music and a couple of things that I'll point out a little bit later that I thought were humorous I'd forgotten about. But in the end, it was enjoyable.
Okay, not a glowing review. Out of a scale from 1 to 10.
I'd probably give it a 7.5.
All right, that's probably where I'd put it too. So for those that have never seen this movie, and it's probably most people, basically the plot is Joyce Hyser plays Terry, a young girl in high school, and she really wants to be a reporter, a journalist. She submits her article to the school newspaper with the hope of being selected to get a summer internship at the local newspaper. Her journalism teacher decides not to, submit her article for consideration. Doesn't feel like the article, what she wrote, is worthy of being included. So she comes up with this brilliant idea to, because she's like, hey, if I was a guy, this would have happened for me. And she poses as a guy and transfers to another school. And not only does she meet a guy that she kind of tries to change and make a better person, more attractive person, but of course, because it's, the 80s, also falls for him. So, even though she does have a college boyfriend, so she falls for him. Chaos ensues, and that's what we have. That's the basic plot of Just One of the Guys. Um, the funny thing I read about this, and I guess the original script was very similar to Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But then somebody said, well, we own the property. I forgot which company put this out, but we own the property of Tootsie. Why don't we just go ahead and make this Tootsie in high school? And that kind of changed the dynamic of it.
Interesting. It sort of ties in a line that I'm remembering. I think it was Bud saying, or maybe it was Terry's best friend saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to be like a real Tootsie or something like that." So interesting. I didn't make that tie in until now.
Yeah, and I was reading about it. The director was also a female, Lisa Gottlieb, and she was probably in her mid 20s when she filmed this, when she directed this.
Wow.
So, and most of the cast were older than high school students. Joyce Hyser at the time of filming this was 26. You're
Yeah, that was
shaking
one of
your
the
head
things.
like you knew. Did you know this, or you just were like, these people were way too old?
I highly suspected it. It was almost like the whole 90210 thing going, yeah, there's no way you guys are all in high school. But yeah, I was looking at the actors and actresses thinking, yeah, you guys are no way like 17, 18. No.
You know what's funny is, the director said that she was concerned about that, that she'd have these actors and, that were looked too old. And I guess originally they wanted to film this in Los Angeles, but there were no empty high schools, so they chose to film this in Arizona. And
Interesting.
so when they went there, they said, okay, you know what? You guys dress up like you were in high school. They got the approval from the principal and go to class. Nobody gave them a second look for their ages. She said, especially because Madonna was so popular at that time and all the girls were wearing so much makeup because it was the 80s and the Madonna craze. Nobody looked twice at them. She said most of the kids in the high school looked older than the actors. So I
Wow.
thought that was a really interesting perspective about it.
Yeah, very, very. Because yeah, when I was looking at the actors, that was one of the first things. It's like you guys have to be in like your mid-20s. There's no way you're like high school kids. So that's interesting that nobody flinched when they actually, did the scenes.
Yeah, well, when they checked out those high schools and went as students, did you have a favorite character in the movie?
Absolutely. 100% made the film, buddy.
Buddy, okay.
How about
Um,
you?
which was what was it? Billy Jane, interesting name. He was actually 15 at the time,
Wow.
so he actually was age appropriate. Um, he was very interesting. There was something probably because I saw myself in him at the time. I kind of went with the Clayton Roner character of Rick.
Okay.
Something about his awkwardness and everything stuck with me. And the fact, not that I'm a James Brown fan, but the character of Rick is a big James Brown fan, and kind of keeps it to himself and everything else. What I found really cool about this, what an experience as an actor, James Brown actually was on set with them. Clayton
Wow.
Roner said he got to spend 3 days and James Brown was breaking out his moves for him. So it came in handy in the prom scene because every 80s movie has to have a prom scene. So yeah, that was actually those moves were taught to him by the one and only James Brown.
Wow. That's a pretty cool perk for having to be on a set for a movie like this. Had no idea, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, and super low budget movie. Um, we gotta talk about William Zabka. It kind of sucks because having met the guy, and again, I am so happy he has a career resurgence with Cobra Kai. But boy, was he the designated asshole for a while of the 80s. He had the trifecta. He had the Karate Kid, and then, of course, he's the bully and just one of the guys. And after that, back to school. Um, do you have a favorite William Zabka bully movie or for his performance?
That's a hard one to call. He was pretty good in this one, and it cracked me up that every time that he was going to, do something bullyish, he had to put on his fingerless weightlifting gloves. That cracked me up. He was pretty good in this one, man. It might be a tie between this one and the Karate Kid.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I love all three of the performances, but you're absolutely right. He was really, really good in this one too. But it just sucks because he's such a nice guy and he got that weird typecast because he actually had the looks. You could see him being the love interest, the leading man, whatever you want to call it. He certainly had the physical appearance for it. But once he was in, the Karate Kid, he got the designated asshole parts.
Yeah, yeah, he got typecast, and yeah, it's unfortunate because, like you said, I think he could have done well, playing more sensitive, more dimensional parts.
Yeah. They should have cast me. I'd be a great asshole. I still would be.
It
I'd be the
would.
old. I could still be the great. I could still do it. Um, you have a favorite scene in this movie, other than when she flashes?
I know, man. I'm like, you'd mentioned to me that there was some nudity in it. And I'm like, it's PG-13. How could there be any nudity? But yeah, at the end there was definitely some nudity. Favorite scenes. Oh man. Hard to pick out just one. Uh, Again, anything that Bud was in was pretty awesome. He reminded me actually a lot of Bud from Married with Children. That same sort of kind of character, which was sort of funny.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I can't pick out a specific scene, John. No,
Wow. All right. I gotta
that's not
go with
true.
okay.
I'll go to one. I'll go to one. I thought it was pretty funny when they were in the cave and they were all partying and stuff. And that's one of the things that I wrote down that I thought was totally funny because I'd forgotten about. When you're looking at the labels of what they're drinking Coke, and there's cans that are just white and say beer, just generic beer, right? And for a while, that was a thing in the 80s where they were making these products that are absolutely generic, white label, black lettering, and that was it. And it's like, crap, I'd forgotten about that.
That was one of my notes too, because researching it, vaguely remember, but I was like, oh, that must have just been, something to because they didn't want to have like a beer sponsorship associated with a teen movie or something like that. But you're absolutely right. That was a thing in the '80s, and those boring labels were really a thing. I don't really remember them that well, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had that on my list too. But so that was it. That's just the notification of that scene in there or the product placement.
That's one of the things that really made it stick out. And I thought it was sort of neat that was, that they had this cave place and, it sounded very plausible. And yeah, and then also the scene where the chick is really like getting into Terry and stuff and she's all like, no, no, this is wrong. And it was a good scene. There's quite a few of them in the movie.
I think my favorite is where when William Zabka's character of Greg, um, he would always terrorize the students, particularly at lunch. And he did so by going up and lifting up their tables, and all the food would spill to the floor. And finally, Rick just had enough of it and just called him out on it. And, makes the comment, oh, psychiatrists or say that people that lift weights are either, compensating for a small brain or a tiny weenie. Well, those of us in Greg's gym class certainly know what the cause is. And then he, says it as a tribute to Greg. Let's go ahead and everybody lift their tables, and the food's going everywhere. I thought that was great. I thought it was a way to get back at him. That was my favorite scene.
No, that was definitely a good scene. Definitely. And yeah, really cool way to sort of get poetic justice because he sort of got a little taste of his own medicine.
So you brought it up, or maybe I did, and you brought it, commented on it. But let's talk about the nudity.
All
Um,
right.
it's a fun part. It actually really was supposed to play a bigger part, or it played a big part in this movie, which is kind of unusual for the movie. But what I read was Joyce Hyser actually had a no nudity clause in her contract, and I probably because of the fact it was a female director, right? Said, "Hey, look, I want you to expose your breasts because, for those who have not seen the movie, at the prom at the end, Rick is, now very has changed his look, his appearance. He gets Deborah, who is the former girlfriend of the bully, Greg, to go with him to prom. Terry brings her friend Denise, and so at the prom, finally Terry just got decides she's going to confess her love to Rick, and Rick is like, no, no, he thought Terry was gay. As my dog is making an appearance here because apparently she's not getting enough attention. Um, and so he's like, no, no. And she's like, I'm not gay, I'm a girl. And he goes, okay, now I'm confused. And she flashes open her, shirt to expose her breasts. And needless to say, he's taken aback by it. But she was actually given control in regards to that. They filmed it both ways, where you could see her and where you couldn't see her breasts, and she gave permission to allow them to be shown. She thought that the scene was much more powerful and made much more sense, in that regard. And of course, as a teen boy seeing this, I completely agree with her. It made much greater impact, but I guess she thought that it worked better for the film.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. I mean that, I won't normally say that nudity has, a real purpose or role in movies. There's a lot of exceptions, but not typically. This one definitely was used well because it's really drove home the point. It's like, hey, I'm not a guy and here's proof. So no, it was cool. It was cool. And definitely as a teenage boy, I would have been pretty stoked as well.
Yeah. So, and then let me talk about the very ending of the movie, because after the prom scene, Rick still hates Terry. Terry goes back to her regular school, her old high school, and the journalism teacher, issues an apology to her, saying he didn't know what a great talent she was, and she knew that he knew that she really liked Rick. She's like, "How'd you know that?" He goes, "I read your article." And then Rick shows up, and kind of the happy ending thing. But a lot of people found it really strange, right? Like, the character of Rick was so anti-typical. Like, he thought Terry was gay, a gay male, and was fine. Like, he had no issues with it or whatever. And suddenly the ending comes up and he's like, well, geez, I'm the man and I need to drive and let me ask you out and everything else. Seemed a little off for how he was presented throughout the film. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I do because you're right. When I've sort of made a mental note of that when that Terry was telling Rick that she was interested in him, and Rick thought that she was just a gay male. He was very accepting of it, right? I didn't see any like disgust or anything like that, and that was interesting because in the 80s, I'm not sure that was as typical, of a reaction, and I could be off on that, but I was expecting more of something like, oh no, we can't do this, or completely pushing it away. Didn't get that vibe, and you're right. Towards the end, it really sort of pushed the male dominance thing of, yeah, let me go ahead and decide that we're going to go ahead and go dancing like you just suggested, and let me drive. So yeah, I did pick up on that as well.
So the interesting thing with that is, I guess one of the writers of the movie went on to create Full House. So he came back to the studios, and now he kind of had some cachet with the studios, and said, "Oh, you know what? This ending, the original ending, didn't work." I guess the original ending had them just playing soccer together and somehow, just kind of collapsing together on the soccer field and laughing. And that was kind of more the end of it. What the dialogue was, I don't know. But he came back and said, "Oh no, it doesn't work." So they reshot that ending months later, and both the director and Joyce Hyser agreed with your assessment and a lot of people's assessment that seemed very out of character and was kind of a strange ending to a movie that had not been very typical up until that point.
Yeah. That's a good call out though, because I did pick up on that.
So, do you know who was in the running for Terry?
No.
Joyce Hyser beat out Jennifer Jason Lee from
Wow.
Times at Ridgemont High.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the time, If you remember in Terry's room, she had some Bruce Springsteen posters.
Yes.
You know why?
No.
She was dating Bruce Springsteen at the time. He actually came to set several times. So, a little bit of trivia. And if you go back and watch the movie, it's kind of funny. So, you'll see on the bathroom wall, Joyce and Lisa are sluts. It is Lisa, right? Yeah, Joyce and Lisa are sluts. Joyce Hyser and Lisa Gottlieb, the director, they put that on there. So I thought that was kind of funny. I thought that was a little interesting tidbit.
Yeah, nice little Easter eggs for sure.
So we're in the prom scene. They had a live band. Cool guitar. I want that guitar. Where do you rank the guitar player's mullet?
It was a pretty impressive mullet. I would give it a 9 out of 10. It was pretty awesome.
Was it better than yours?
100% better than mine, man. I
100%
had a
better
decent
than
mullet.
Oh, you did. You had a good one. But yeah, I don't. Wow. All right. You think it's up there with the great mullets, huh?
It was an impressive mullet. It was super impressive.
Maybe that's what we should do for an episode: the best mullets of the '80s.
There you go. There you go.
My brain is thinking. Gotta think about that. I'm trying to think of some of my other notes here. Excuse me. Um, so what do you think about the message of the movie? Did you find that the message of the movie seemed to be that of like you said, acceptance, which isn't, kind of was a little bit against the grain in the '80s. Maybe we weren't as sensitive towards people of different lifestyles to us. Um, it seemed to be a very accepting movie, and apparently today it's still incredibly popular with the LGBTQ community. What did you think about that? Did you find it pretty strange for an '80s movie?
Like I said, it wasn't what I would have expected out of a typical 80s movie, but it was nice. It was refreshing to see that, some people in that era did have that awareness, and it was cool to see that in the movie for sure.
Okay. Well, good. I agree. Um, did you laugh and notice when he said uh, Clayton Roner's character said Cindy Lauper?
I did. I was like, have I been pronouncing it all, wrong all along? Or is it Cindy Lauper, not Lauper? But I
Yeah,
did.
he says to this day he still gets shit for it, and he should. Cindy Lauper. Who am I, Cindy Lauper? And why did they not catch it? Make him do it again? It was a strange thing for me. I just don't know. But so I got to ask you, there are a lot of attractive actresses in this movie. Cheryl, like I said, Sherilyn Fenn in one of her early roles. Joyce Hyser, the friend Denise was the one that couldn't get a boyfriend until she met Mullet Guy, and even Deborah, who was Greg Tolan's girlfriend. Who was the attractive girl for you? If you were in high school, well, she was 26 at the time. I think Sherilyn Fenn was the youngest at 20. But if you were that age, which one would you have asked to the prom?
So I don't know what Sherilyn Fenn looks like, so I don't know which actress it
He
is.
was the one that was feeding pizza to the fish.
Then it would have been her. I thought she had amazing eyes, really, really pretty eyes, and yeah, it would have been her.
All right. Well, we agree on
And
that.
oh, nice.
We agree. I think second might have been second would have either been Denise or Terry. So, but
All
okay,
right.
cool. Well, I'm trying to think. Do you remember Joyce Hyser from anything else?
I don't.
She was the actress in the video for "I Can Dream About You."
Huh.
So,
Really?
you
I'll have
know,
to go back and watch that.
look that one up. And
Excellent.
sorry.
No, no, no issues. You can continue.
Well, I got to ask you about this. Um, Bud mentioned like the most important thing about being a guy was essentially ball itching.
And then
Where,
everybody had itchy balls. It was a fact.
it was a fact. Where do you stand on that itchy ball thing, and how much of that do you think it makes up for male masculinity?
Well, he's not wrong, I guess. At some point, it does itch down there, right? Um, so he's speaking truths. Um, and I don't know. I don't know how much further I can comment on that.
I feel if it's like itching that much, he might need to go see a doctor. But that's me. That's my thought process.
That that reminds me of the scene in the locker room where that Terry had was first, playing the role of a boy, and there's this guy sitting there itching his underwear, and he's all like, "It looks like it's spreading. Like, what do you think?" Oh man, it made me think.
Conversations that I had never had in a locker room.
Hell no, man. You kidding me?
Interesting. All right. I think. Oh, and also, just again, a little bit of trivia. Clayton Roner and the girl that played his love interest in it, and God, I didn't. Um, what was her name? Deborah. Deborah Goodrich playing Deborah. Also, we're in the movie April Fool's Day
I don't
together.
think I've ever seen that one.
Never saw that one. It has also Deborah Foreman as from Valley Girl in it,
Hmm.
and probably one of the weirdest films you've ever seen in the '80s because I don't think they ever knew how to market it, and it looked like a standard slasher movie, and it was anything but. So it's kind of a strange film. I recently saw it. The new Bev, which you know me and the new Bev, they did a thing for January 1st. They did four movies for holiday-based movies, holiday-based horror films, and that was one of the movies they did, which I thought was kind of interesting. That's some weird stuff on that night, but April Fool's Day, it was kind of cool to see that one again.
So is it weird in a good way or just weird, weird?
I think because of the way they market it into a typical slasher movie, if you went in, you know, hey, this is a slasher film and everything else, you're gonna be annoyed. If you know, if you saw if they had cut a trailer differently and maybe they did just the way it was presented, you know, in ads and everything else, you were thinking you're getting the new Friday the 13th. And it was not like that. So it was a good movie. It's just you can't go in there expecting like, hey, this is you know the prototypical slasher movie. Otherwise, you're going to be gravely disappointed.
All
So,
right. Yeah, I'll
and
check it out.
since we're almost wrapped up on just one of the guys, I do have to bring this up. I don't know what it is about you in concerts getting canceled. 10 minutes ago, I got notification that the Cheap Trick concert we were going to in May is canceled. I hate you.
Oh, oh no. Oh,
I
that
don't know what it
sucks.
is, dude. You kill all the concerts.
But I wasn't going to that one though. So
Hey, you were
no.
in May.
Oh, oh yeah, I wasn't I? Old age has not done well for me.
Apparently, I was going alone. I don't know.
Oh
I thought this was
man. No, 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 you're
yeah,
right. We had
Cheap Trick
talked
and
about
Night
this.
Ranger, and it's canceled.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that sucks.
No, so I don't know what they're gonna do. They just said they're gonna send me a refund, but I thought it was funny, and I had to bring it up and get your reaction on this because, yeah, it's you get those concerts canceled, dude.
That blows, man. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
all right. I should know better than to bring you, so it's okay. Anything you want to add about just one of the guys or anything in general?
Yeah, so I want to go over a couple of lines that sort of stuck with me. Where I think it was did I write? Okay, yeah. Where Bud was trying to, I guess, have sex with the girl that he was teaching algebra to or something, and he was laying on the floor grabbing her ankle, and then he flips on his back and he goes, would it change your mind if I told you that I was hung like a bear?" And the girl's still, well, maybe. Are you? It's like, no. And she walks out the door.
I can't believe I forgot that. That was fantastic. The girl wanted no part of it. Then he brings that up. And it just kind of changes her mind for a second. Like, well, no, are you? He's like, no.
The fact that he named his penis Spike, he talked to it for a second. Um, let's see, the generic beer, which I already brought up. And there was one scene which I thought was sort of a little creepy, where I guess the coaches, or maybe they're just teachers, talking about some girl that was in the class, and so like, yeah, this one has legs up to here, man. We should flunk her so we keep her around for another year.
Yeah, there was some definitely inappropriate things being said by the teachers and the PE teacher saying, "What you want out of class? Are you some kind of pussy?" It's like, oh shit, really? Like, but I mean, I never remember being called that, but definitely the way some of the shop teachers talk to you and everything, it's like, yeah, I was like, oh, it's really it was a different world in the '80s. It really was.
Indeed. Yeah,
All
those are
right,
the lines that I jotted down as like I was going through. It's like, oh, I've got to remember this one. But yeah, one of my favorite ones was definitely Butt on the Floor, and the whole bear thing. That was hilarious.
that's awesome. All right. Well, I think we're done with just one of the guys. I'm glad you finally got to see it. Again, not one of the greatest movies, but a lot of fun, and it's kind of a different '80s movie. But I'm glad you got to see it, got to check it out, and it's interesting to hear your perspective. You seeing it now as opposed to me seeing it when I was a teenager.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was fun, man. I would definitely recommend it. Again, don't go expecting, this to be an Oscar winner or anything, but it was entertaining. I would recommend it.
Good. Well, we appreciate you guys as always for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and Lewis, take us out, brother.
Peace out, everyone.
Thank you guys.